The Auburn Tigers will aim to shut down a huge playmaker going into the season opener.
Well, Zach, I actually just finished crushing some chicken farm, and I am freaking ready to rock and roll.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining me as he does every Wednesday, Mike G of the War Rapport. Happy War Rapport Wednesday to all of you who celebrate. Mike G, we've got football, Auburn football on Saturday. They host the Mercer Bears, and I want to touch on the 5 biggest individual matchups that we will see on the field at Jordan Hare Stadium this Saturday. And look, this wide receiver that Mercer has going into this game, Tate James, he wears number 13, him pairing up against either Jaylin Simpson or Nehemiah Pritchett will, one, give us a ton of information about how this coaching staff views the defensive back hierarchy going throughout the season. But also, like, this guy can play, Mike G. He absolutely went off against Morehead State in week 0.
Yeah, 5 targets, 5 catches, 192 yards, and 3 TDs.
You take that. You absolutely take that if you're right. Mercer.
Now, production after him dropped off significantly. Yeah. I mean, their second leading receiver only had 3 yards for 3 catches, or 2 catches for 35 yards. So there wasn't a lot of production outside of that. Ultimately, this is a game Auburn should dominate, which means guys dominating their individual matchups. I absolutely agree. We're going to find out a lot about what they think about the defensive back hierarchy in this game to see, hey, do they respect Tate James enough to, put some help on him, or do they just let Pritchett or Simpson go one-on-one with this guy?
Yeah, who is the corner on him will be really, really fun to see. And if they move around the field, does a specific corner follow him? Or is one guy going to be boundary? Or is one guy going to be field? That'll be fun to see. But Tate James lined up pretty much to the offensive left for everything that I saw in the relevant snaps that Mercer played against Morehead State, and pretty much made the most of his damage off of these post routes, which – he will not have that much space, we hope, against Auburn on Saturday. But they used him in a bunch of different ways. Not only, he scored multiple touchdowns off of a post route, but also they used him in the screen game. And, I mean, you said his numbers. He had 5 of the 13 receptions that they were able to achieve against Morehead State on Saturday. So, I mean, this guy is the focal point of this Mercer passing attack.
Yeah, I mean, the way to stop a receiver is to stop the quarterback, I think, first and foremost. So I think you'll see us try to get after this guy. He wasn't under very much pressure against Morehead State. He will be under a ton of pressure on Saturday versus Derek Hall, Eric Leota. So, Eku Leota. So they didn't throw the ball down the field at all. A lot of his production was made on catches inside 20 yards, and then a lot of yak yards after that. So I don't expect to see that on Saturday, but he is somebody you have to pay attention to, because if you're sleeping and you have a coverage bust, this is a guy who can take it to the house.
Yeah, I believe he leads all D1 right now in receiving yards. So props to him. Props to him. Small sample size, sure, but I mean, I was impressed watching this. Like, Tate James is like so much better than everybody else on the field right now. But yeah, the biggest takeaway as far as what Auburn can learn from this is how they defend him. Is it Jaylin Simpson? Is it Nehemiah Pritchett? It seems like the going feeling is Nehemiah Pritchett is 1A and Jaylin Simpson is 1B. That's kind of the feeling I get. I'm in the Jaylin Simpson camp. I think as far as shutting down a guy like Tate James, put Jaylin Simpson on the line and just let him beat up opposing wide receivers. I think that would be kind of more of his game. And Nehemiah Pritchett, I can see him being a little bit better off ball than Jaylin Simpson. But once again, we can kind of look at this game on Saturday, which shouldn't mean much in the second half. I think we all hope it doesn't mean much in the second half. But those are kind of little nuggets that we can pull from this game and what it means as we prepare for Penn State in 2 weeks.
Agreed. Like I said, these are matchups ultimately Auburn should dominate. Both the guys we're talking about have been mentioned in the fastest on the team discussion. So there should be plenty of speed between Pritchett and Simpson to lock down Tate James. I expect them to do it.
Yep. Yeah. And like Trey Lindsay came on the show, and he believes that Jaylin Simpson is the best athlete on campus. So
okay.
We'll see.
All right.
We will see. We will see. All right. The number 2, the second most important individual matchup that I'm looking at this Saturday, Mike G. Mercer defensive lineman Chris Hill versus Auburn's new center, Tate Johnson, with the news becoming official earlier this week that Nick Brahms will be missing the rest of the season as his football career is over. So obviously I think Tate Johnson is going to have a lot of eyes on him, and what a great stepping stone for Tate Johnson to be able to go up against this defensive line for his first start in his career. I think that'll be nice. Chris Hill led all defensive linemen, I believe, for Mercer in reps. And so he wears number 98. So it'll be fun to see what that matchup looks like. Chris Hill has the size advantage over Tate Johnson, which most defensive tackles that he will go up against this year will have that. So we'll get a little bit of information on how he deals with that in week 1.
Yeah, listen, offensive line is a concern. I think it's Auburn's number 1 concern going into this season. Now, missing Brahms is a huge hit, right? Can't say enough about that young man. He gave this team his all. Unfortunately, circumstances have dictated that he retire from football. Now, I think a lot of fans are confused, Zach, on the Brahms thing. If you're not one of these people who stays plugged into football all offseason, Brahms had surgery before the bowl game or in December and just never made it back. So Tate Johnson is no stranger to the center position because he's been taking snaps there all offseason and player-led practices in the spring. Brahms has been out, so they had to have somebody in there. So it's not as if it's the season's coming and we're throwing Tate Johnson in all of a sudden. This is somebody who's been working at that position all offseason. I expect him, based on what we've heard about the strength and conditioning coming out of this second year under Brian Harson's staff, everybody's stronger. So he may be undersized, but I expect him to be strong and be able to hold his own there. So center is an important position. And the line matchups. Here's one of the things that we have to pay attention to, because last year against Georgia State, it was rough, right? Our offensive line had a rough time against their D-line, and against an undersized opponent, against Mercer, who you should be able to dominate. It's going to be interesting to see how this line holds up in that matchup against, what are some linemen with talent. Now, I'm not saying that they should be beating our guys, but, at the end of the day, they've got talent down there, and I want to see how they're going to perform.
Yeah, and just one more note on Chris Hill. Once again, he wears number 98. He'll be in the middle of Mercer's defensive line. I think they like this guy. He's a redshirt sophomore, but he played 10 games last season as a redshirt freshman. So he's and he's a starter. He started against Morehead State. So that's a guy that I think is worthy of your attention when you're looking at these individual matchups during the game on Saturday. Mercer's top cornerback. Which wide receiver do we think he will line up against? We'll tell you in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. The season is finally here, and we hope you're ready to go with everything at Bet Online. You can get odds from all over the place, props from all over the place, futures from all over the place. It's the place to gamble on all of your sports action this season. Obviously, college football is here. The NFL is just days away as well. It's a great, great time of year, and you can make it even better at BetOnline. Check out BetOnline on your smartphone or your computer. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. It's a War Rapport Wednesday as Mike G joins us of the War Rapport. The next individual matchup I want to talk about, Mike G, Cam Sims. He is the Mercer cornerback. He's the best cornerback on this team based on the first half of the game that we watched this past weekend between Mercer and Morehead State. I think he's going to line up specifically against Shedrick Jackson, and I think Shedrick Jackson is going to be one of the primary guys on the outside. I don't think that's a hot take. When you look at this, we don't know what the wide receiver rotation is going to look like. In fact, it may look a little bit different this Saturday than it will moving forward once, the schedule picks up. But Cam Sims, he got an interception against Morehead State. It was on he cut off an in-breaking route, which is how I've said that we need to use Shedrick Jackson consistently. So that to me is kind of why it's a matchup that I'm paying attention to. You're muted, bud. I think. I think you're muted.
Yep. Sorry about that, Zach.
So
this is a really important matchup, and it is going to be for the rest of the season. Now, Shedrick Jackson starting at the X is something that I was not expecting this year. I thought that they would maybe use him differently. So we'll see. To your point, in the spring we saw them give him some different type routes than he got last year. So breathing down Shedrick's neck is the star freshman everybody's been talking about in Camden Brown.
Sure.
So, whether he can win individual matchups early will determine how a lot goes on offense for this team. Now, TJ Finley, the quarterback, is going to need experience there. He's going to need guys who he's got chemistry with, that know how to get open, that are where they're supposed to be when he gets rid of the ball. Shedrick Jackson is thought to be one of those reliable guys. He's going into his 6th year. I'm going to be all eyes on the X position Saturday to see if Shedrick can dominate this matchup against his defensive back.
Yeah. And Cam Sims wears number 6, so that'll be a fun one to follow around. Who is he going to be covering? And look, it could be Malcolm Johnson Jr., who I think will be on the outside, on the other side of the field. I can't believe you just talked about wide receivers for a minute and you didn't bring up your guy, Malcolm Johnson Jr. I hope you're okay. I hope you're feeling okay.
I expect him to do well, so we'll need to talk about it. I expect him to do well.
There we go. And, just while we're talking about wide receivers, I actually think Tarvaris Dawson is going to win the day. I think he's going to be the guy that gets the most catches. I think he's going to be the guy that gets the most attention, and people are going to be like, oh, wow, okay, maybe this is kind of the guy that that could replace Kobe Hudson, because it's going to be a similar role from what we saw of Kobe a year ago. So I think Tarvaris Dawson's going to win the day as far as Auburn wide receivers go.
All eyes are going to be on this room, Zach, because outside of offensive line, again, one of the biggest areas of concern last year were the receivers. The storylines were they're not getting separation, and they're not winning matchups, and they're not fast, and they're not this. This might be one of the fastest wide receiver rooms we've had. The addition of Camden Brown, if you remember, Auburn went after Darius Clemens in recruiting. They whiffed on that. He went to Michigan. Camden Brown was thought to be the backup guy, and look, he's come in here and he's dominated in camp to the tune of, hey, for a staff that I think is very careful with playing true freshmen, he moved up the depth chart quickly in just the summer. So this will be interesting. This is going to be interesting to watch this group. I think we see 6 wide receivers easily on Saturday. So you'll see
as far as like with the ones
and the 2s. I think we're going to see a healthy dose of whoever's at the 2 position Saturday.
Well, I bet we see more than 6 if you're counting the 2s.
Yeah, minimum. Yeah,
we may see 8 or 9, honestly, because I think you're going to see the 2 deep rotate with the 1s to some extent. I don't know if it's all going to be even by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think we'll see all of them. Yeah. I'm going to be fascinated to see, because you just mentioned Camden is breathing down Shedrick's neck. I don't know if I buy that, or if I do, I don't think it's going to be reflected in the snap count, because Shedrick Jackson's the last 2 years, he's just been on the field a ton. The dude doesn't come off the field. And I just can't really see that changing in his final year of eligibility.
Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing. At the end of the day, there's a very different feel around this football team. And Camden Brown is a playmaker, and you need guys who can go out there and create. You need a guy who can go win a 50-50 ball. When you need a play, when the game's on the line, I'm not sure, Shedrick is a guy who will be where he's supposed to be.
Right.
But when everything is going haywire, Camden Brown is a potential playmaker, man. He's a guy who's going to win his matchup. He's going to moss a guy or 2 this season.
Yeah, sure.
Come on, man. Sometimes you just got to get talent on the field. So I'll be taking a look to see if they don't mix up these wide receiver matchups based on who's performing and who's not. Coy Moore, I love Malcolm Johnson, but Coy Moore was another guy who they really, really like, and he's coming. So if these guys at the 1 positions aren't making plays, aren't getting separations, and if the quarterback is on target but we still can't make plays, expect the number 2s to jump up in there and try to give Auburn a spark offensively.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I'm just kind of poking about what the rotation looks like between Shedrick and Camden. I think that's going to be fascinating. I really do.
Well, last point, Zach. If you listen to Harston in his press conferences, he talked about the starting lineup, but if you really, and I may be overthinking this, but what I hear him saying is these are our starters for game 1, and the competition continues. So, guys have to continue to play well, or other guys are going to get a chance to step up. He said that a couple times since we've been in camp, and I got to believe that's the case.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure that is true. All right, the next individual matchup that I want to talk about, Mike G. Al Wooten II, he is Mercer's starting running back. I have him paired against Cam Riley at linebacker. Wooten II, he ran the ball 13 times. I have for 96 yards. You were looking at something that has him over 100 yards, but regardless, that's kind of what we're looking at. I think Mercer's going to try to bring their physical game plan to Jordan Hare Stadium. I think they're going to try to run it on Auburn. And Auburn better make sure it doesn't work, or it's going to be an annoying team to deal with over the course of 60 minutes. And nobody wants this game to be annoying. We all want it to be boring at the end of the second quarter. So I think that's going to be what they're going to try to do. I think they're also going to probably throw more at Owen Papo. And so that means the guy next to Owen Papo needs to step up. And that's the inexperienced but extremely high upside Cam Riley. So, yeah, that's my fourth matchup. Wooten II, the running back, going up against Cam Riley at linebacker.
Zach, as an extremely amateur golfer, whatever a level below amateur is, I can tell you have a saying. They say on the course, when you can putt. And that's what it's going to be like for Mercer. If they can keep the ball on the ground and out of harm's way, they're going to try to see if Auburn will give them that early. I expect to see this D-line shine in the run stopping. So it's good, maybe hard for them. Based on what we saw on tape, their quarterback only threw 14 passes in this game where they ran up the score on Morehead State. So I expect Auburn to try to take away the run game and force them to do something through the air on them. It's going to be tough. I think on these running backs, they had two backs break 100 yards or, they were a combined plus 200 on the ground, 363 rushing yards total as a team for the game. That number is going to be much lower on Saturday. If it's not, I think Auburn's in trouble. You cannot let Mercer control the clock on the ground.
Yeah. And our stats are different, which is funny. I've got Payton throwing 17 passes, their quarterback. We'll talk about him in a second. But, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if we see Auburn's linebackers close to the line of scrimmage. And, I mean, just really suffocate this and just kind of put, their corners on an island and say, hey, beat us. Let's go. Let's go, guys. Let's show you what we're made of kind of thing. And also just from an evaluation standpoint, because that seems to be where a lot of fans still think we kind of are. And you just kind of made some comments, too, about the starters. And if they don't execute, guys can be, subbed in immediately. I can't think of a better way to kind of say, hey, put up or shut up than just doing a lot of isolation stuff defensively. And I think, Auburn defenders should absolutely blow them out of the water. So I think that's what the game plan is going to be. It's going to be fun. As far as Mercer running backs, Austin Douglas, he was kind of their number 2 change of pace guy. He seems to be a little bit more explosive, a little bit faster. He broke a long run for a touchdown. I think he's better, but Austin Douglas is also a running back to watch.
For sure.
Mike G. Anything else on that?
No.
All right. Mike G., our guest today on this War Rapport Wednesday. We touch on our final individual matchup next. And yes, it includes Mercer's quarterback right here on Locked On Auburn. I want to encourage folks to check out the Locked On Auburn Discord. It is free. All you have to do is click the link in the description down below, or if you're listening on audio, it is in the show notes. Mike G., our last individual matchup that I want to talk about, Mercer quarterback Fred Payton versus Auburn's Donovan Kaufman. I put Kaufman because I think he's going to be all over the place. We may see him a little bit at safety. We may see him at nickel. We may see him off the ball. We may see him on the line. I think he's going to do a lot of different things. And like we touched on, Payton went 11 for 17 for 248 and 4 scores. But if you take out his stats to Ty James, it was a very pedestrian day. I think Payton, he executed a few RPOs against Morehead State. I wouldn't be shocked if they try to do that. Look, if I'm Morehead State, I am attacking Auburn's linebackers. That is my game plan. And you could do that through the running game, and you could do it through RPOs. And so if I'm them, I'm lining up. I'm seeing where Cam Riley and Owen Papo are, and I am reading them as far as the run-pass option game. We saw him do it a little bit against Morehead State. I'm expecting more of that on Saturday.
Me too. I have a hot take on this one.
Okay.
Donovan Kaufman definitely gets a pick six on Saturday.
Oh.
I think Kaufman takes one to the house on Saturday. He was one of my favorite Building Report interviews we've done this offseason. Yep. Talking about, guys just understanding where to be, taking better angles to the football. He had one that he blew completely during the Texas A&M game last year. We gave him a lot of crap about it, but he made up ground and punched the ball out. And those guys have been working on a lot of technique things. They've really dug into what they could improve from last year.
Sure.
And I think that at some point Mercer is going to press and they're going to have to make a play. And Donovan Kaufman is going to be there to take one to the house. So I'm going to call my shot on this one. Donovan Kaufman pick six on Saturday.
You also called your shot calling this a shutout, right? You still there?
Oh, wait. Did I?
I thought you did.
Listen, I'm close. I called a lot of shutouts that didn't happen last year. so we got one. And we needed
you said field goal. You said there'd be two shutouts, right?
This year?
That's what I thought you said.
Yeah. I'm going for two shutouts this year.
Okay.
It's just so hard. Like on defense, I think we're better at the 2 deep than we were last year.
Okay.
Right. I think that this is a better team at the 2 deep than it was last year, particularly along the line.
I think the starters are better too. I mean, the defense is all around better. Right.
This is a strong defense. I think this is a strong defense. I expect them to show it on Saturday. Mm-hmm. I think that Eku Leota and Derek Hall are going to just wreak havoc. And the guys around them are going to eat from the mismatches that those guys are going to create. Sure. And it should be tough for Mercer. So this is why I give this a chance to be a shutout. Even at corner, listen, I know we're starting Simpson, but DJ James has gotten a lot of praise from his teammates in camp. He, again, is mentioned in the fastest guy on the team discussion. I see a lot of really, really, really talented kids on this defense. And I think that once that second team comes in, they have a chance to pick up the banner and not allow any points. Shut out. Okay. All right. Fine. You talk me into it. Shut out.
All right. I was just asking questions, Mike G. I was
I talked myself into it. Okay.
All right. I'm asking all my guests this week to give score predictions, and we'll wrap up with this. Give me a score prediction for Saturday.
Well, you know what I have for Mercer? I have a goose egg. Right. But for Auburn, I think that you see maybe the offense have a little bit of a coming out party similar to Akron last year. And I expect 55 points in this one.
Okay.
I expect plus 50 points in this one. I think, 62-ish is probably not out of the question. But if they can run the ball, I expect a lot of points.
Give me a percentage of snaps that TJ plays at quarterback, a percentage of snaps that Robbie plays at quarterback, and a percentage of snaps that somebody else plays at quarterback.
Oh, man, listen, in a 62 or 55 shutout, I'm going 50-50 on the snaps because I think that Robbie Ashford gets close to a half of football in this one, right? I think if it's out of control by halftime, Robbie Ashford will get in there. I think the coaches have learned from last year in terms of getting the backup prepared in case you need them, not just because of poor play, but maybe injury. I don't know. Who knows?
If he doesn't get close to a half of football, and it's a blowout, obviously context matters here, but if he only gets like 2 or 3 drives and they put Zac in and then they put walk-ons in, does that mean anything?
Yeah, I think it does. But I'll tell you right now, I don't expect to see Zach Calzada on Saturday.
At all?
At all. No.
Wow.
I don't expect to see Zac Calzada on Saturday. So, and listen, I'm a big Calzada guy. I like him. But based on the feedback that we've gotten from the staff and what we've heard publicly, I think there's no reason to play QB3 in this one at this point. You tagged Robbie Ashford as your backup. I think they're going to get him as much work as possible.
You don't think walk-ons or anything play? You think it's just 2 quarterbacks on Saturday?
I think it's 2 quarterbacks on Saturday. I think you need too much information on the 2 guys that you picked 1 and 2 to waste any snaps with 3s and 4s.
We've just talked about this before. I just don't think if you're up 40-0 and Robbie's like, that just seems silly to me. Like that just seems like you're not getting any information if he's in there.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like I said, they've got no tape on Robbie, right? They've got no in-game tape on Robbie. I personally just don't think they waste a chance to evaluate him in any way under the lights by giving snaps to the number 3. number 3 quarterback. Just me.
Yeah. If he stays in, 50 may be too low.
Yeah, I'm excited if he stays in because I think he was the hardest one to evaluate because his teammates have all said when Robbie gets in the game, he's a problem. Kaufman said it's a scream from the sideline that they have. They're like, nine's in the game. Now, I'm not comparing him to Cam Newton, but I'm saying similarly in camp, it was very hard to evaluate what a run by Cam was going to be because the quarterbacks never go live. So you never know when people are trying to hit him what he's going to do, and I'm excited to see a whole half of that. I think it'll be fun to watch.
All right, we'll see if we get it or not. Yep. Mike G, before we wrap up, how can people find you, hear you, watch you, all that stuff?
Just head on over to the War Rapport, subscribe. We are doing game day activities, so pregame, halftime, postgame. The War Rapport will be coming at you all game day. We've got a whole lineup for you guys. Don't miss it.
Check it all out at the War Rapport. Join us tomorrow. We'll continue looking at this Auburn Mercer game. The season is here. You can follow me on Twitter at Zac Blackerby. Read all of my written work at auburndaily.com. We'll see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Auburn.